All right, folks. For week 6 Tuesday, your first priority is to take progress check 1. It will show you the correct answers afterwards so that you have feedback, and there will also be explanations for whichever answer you chose. And so try it out, see how it goes, and you can kind of get a feel for the reading questions versus the writing questions and start to understand that and hopefully have some good questions about that. We are going to do a little bit of Fahrenheit 451 today, and the section that we are doing is it's rather climactic, and I'm going to read a little bit with you, and then I'm going to let everybody read part of the section on their own. And I have this set of questions. They're not long, not as long as the part 1 questions, but they just go along with the pages from today. And since I'm giving you, an extra set of questions on top of the part 1 questions, I'm going to make tomorrow a working day so that you have a little bit of extra time to be able to complete those questions and get them done before we move on farther in the novel. So tomorrow's going to be just, finishing up the questions. If you finish them up today, then you get sort of a free day tomorrow. So woohoo! So for the section for today, I'm going to start where we left off on page 15 at the beginning of the card game. I feel like there was something I was going to say before I start, but can't remember. Anyways, so point being, where we're at right now, Clarice has mysteriously disappeared. We know that Montag is having a little bit of trouble at work, mechanical hound kind of stuff. That's sort of our situation as it stands. So let's see what climactic event will occur today. Oh, I know what I was going to say. I was going to tell you where we're going to stop. Okay, if you want to just read the whole thing by yourself, we are going to stop on page 20 after the very first paragraph. So, there's a paragraph that starts on page 19 and it goes on to page 20. And when that paragraph ends, you're done. And that's the same for everybody. Okay, cool. So we'll start the reading together part, and then I will let all of you read individually. The flutter of cards, motion of hands, of eyelids, the drone of the time voice in the firehouse ceiling. 1:35, Thursday morning, November 4th, 1:36, 1:37 a.m. The tick of the playing cards on the greasy tabletop. All the sounds came to Montag behind his closed eyes, behind the barrier he had momentarily erected. He could feel the firehouse full of glitter and shine and silence, of brass colors, the colors of coins, of gold, of silver. The unseen men across the table were sighing on their cards, waiting. 1:45. The voice clock mourned out the cold hour of a cold morning of a still colder year. What's wrong, Montag? Montag opened his eyes. A radio hummed somewhere. War may be declared any hour. This country stands ready to defend its. The firehouse trembled as a great flight of jet planes whistled a single note across the black morning sky. Montag blinked. Beatty was looking at him, as if he were a museum statue. At any moment, Beatty might rise and walk about him, touching, exploring his guilt and self-consciousness. Guilt? What guilt was that? Your play, Montag. Montag looked at these men whose faces were sunburnt by 1,000 real and 10,000 imaginary fires, whose work flushed their cheeks and fevered their eyes. These men who looked steadily into their platinum igniter flames as they lit their eternally burning black pipes. They and their charcoal hair and soot-colored brows and bluish, ash-smeared cheeks where they had shaven close, but their heritage showed. Montag started up, his mouth opened. Had he ever seen a fireman that didn't have black hair, black brows, a fiery face, and a blue steel-shaved but unshaved look? These men were all mirror images of himself. Were all firemen picked then for their looks as well as their proclivities? The color of cinders and ash about them, and the continual smell of burning from their pipes. Captain Beatty there, rising in thunderheads of tobacco smoke. Beatty opening a fresh tobacco packet, crumpling the cellophane into a sound of fire. Montag looked at the cards in his own hands. I've been thinking about the fire last week, about the man whose library we fixed. What happened to him? They took him screaming off to the asylum. He wasn't insane. Beatty arranged his cards quietly. Any man's insane who thinks he can fool the government and us. I've tried to imagine, said Montag, just how it would feel. I mean, to have firemen burn our houses and our books. We haven't any books. But if we did have some. You got some? Beatty blinked slowly. No. Montag gazed beyond them to the wall with the typed lists of 1,000,000 forbidden books. Their names leapt in fire, burning down the years under his axe and his hose, which sprayed not water but kerosene. No. But in his mind, a cool wind started up and blew out of the ventilator grill at home, softly, softly, chilling his face. And again, he saw himself in a green park, talking to an old man, a very old man, and the wind from the park was cold too. Montag hesitated. Was it always like this? The firehouse, our work? I mean, well, once upon a time. Once upon a time, Beatty said. What kind of talk is that? Fool, thought Montag to himself. You'll give it away. At the last fire, a book of fairy tales. He glanced at a single line. I mean, he said, in the old days, before homes were completely fireproofed. Suddenly it seemed a much younger voice was speaking for him. He opened his mouth, and it was Clarice McClellan saying, Didn't firemen prevent fires rather than stoke them up and get them going? That's rich. Stoneman and Black drew forth their rule books, which also contained brief histories of the firemen of America, and laid them out where Montag, though long familiar with them, might read. Established, 1790, to burn English-influenced books in the colonies. First fireman, Benjamin Franklin. Rule 1. Answer the alarm swiftly. 2. Start the fire swiftly. 3. Burn everything. 4. Report back to firehouse immediately. 5. Stand alert for other alarms. Everyone watched Montag. He did not move. The alarm sounded. The bell in the ceiling kicked itself 200 times. Suddenly, there were 4 empty chairs. The cards fell in a flurry of snow. The brass pole shivered. The men were gone. Montag sat in his chair. Below, the orange dragon coughed into life. Montag slid down the pole like a man in a dream. The mechanical hound leapt up in its kennel, its eyes all green flame. Montag, you forgot your helmet. He seized it off the wall behind him, ran, leapt, and they were off, the night wind hammering about their siren scream and their mighty metal thunder. Okay, so we are about to get to see a fire call. We technically saw like a smidgen of the one at the very beginning of the book, but obviously, it's kind of the tail end of things. Montag was just lighting things up, and then that was it, and he went back. So we're going to get to see this one from start to finish, and this fire call is going to be a bit different from the other ones that Montag has responded to. So the difference is going to be crucial and important, and obviously you should make note of the differences of this fire call to other ones and what exactly happens at this fire call. As I mentioned, you are going to be going through the beginning of page 20, so you got a few pages all by yourself. So when you get to this paragraph, which continues on to page 20, you will stop right where this paragraph ends, and that's the end of the section. And in the physical book, there's a little page break there. Okay, so that is going to be your mission, and the questions that are posted on Canvas, which focus on the figurative language in this section, those are your mission, your quest, as you are reading this section. Just want to mention a couple of things about what we just read. It wasn't long, but there's a couple of interesting things going on here. So Montag seems to be feeling more and more guilt. And at this point, we can maybe have kind of two theories. I mean, on the one hand, he and Clarice have been having some very interesting conversations that probably would get him referred to a psychiatrist. So maybe he's just feeling guilt about his association with her and about his doubts and his questions that he's starting to have. On the other hand, they do seem to be mentioning, and this is, maybe the second or third time that it's been mentioned, this ventilator grill. I don't remember exactly where it is, but yes, the ventilator grill at home. What is in the ventilator grill that Montag might feel guilty about? I had one class who was pretty convinced it was drugs, and Montag was secretly a cocaine dealer. But, spoiler alert, it is not drugs. Okay. The image of the mirror came back. I mentioned that would be a recurring image. So when Montag looks at the faces of all of the men surrounding him, he starts to reflect more upon himself, looking into their faces, the mirror of their faces, shows him something about himself. And that's when he starts getting a little suspicious. I mean, if Beatty didn't think something was weird with Montag before, he definitely thinks something weird now. Saying that the man taken off to the asylum wasn't insane. Imagining how it would feel to have firemen burn his house and his books. Not that he has any, of course, but just a empathetic exercise there. Yep, nothing. And then once upon a time. There is no once upon a time in this society. No one reads fairy tales. They are outlawed. So the fact that Montag even knows that phrase is definitely a huge red flag for Beatty there. The questions that he has about the fireman's history. I mean, obviously, this society is suppressing history to a great degree. They have completely twisted and manipulated the history of firemen. So the history of the firemen, apparently, people started burning books back in 1790. Who would have thought? And Benjamin Franklin was apparently leading the book burnings. Now, interesting thing about Benjamin Franklin, and you can see how they haven't twisted history too much, I suppose. Benjamin Franklin did found the first firehouse in America, the kind that put fires out. That was his responsibility. Ironically, as well, he also founded the first public library. So it's especially ironic that he's been recast as a book burner, considering those two things. Rules for the firemen, fairly straightforward, pretty simple. Then we get the fire call, and the figurative language starts to explode. The bell in the ceiling kicked itself 200 times. A little bit of personification there. The orange dragon, the kind of metaphorical dragon that is compared to the fire engine. And then we get to the house. So starting from here, very bottom of page 16 to the very top of page 20, what happens at this fire call? What makes it so important and so special and so unique and so impactful? Okay, that's all I'm going to say. I'm going to stop myself now. All right, so I'll mention this again in a very short video for tomorrow, but today and tomorrow are just devoted to reading this section, working on those figurative language questions, and that is all. Make sure to take the progress check.